What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Del Rey. Today, a little bit different. Today's going to be almost entirely like opinion basis. I'm going to go through what are, in my mind, the top 5 position battles that I'm most looking forward to for the Green Bay Packers to figure out and solve as on the verge of OTAs as we are. Yeah, that's right. OTAs start next week. Now, keep in mind, OTAs, these are still of the voluntary nature. We don't get into mandatory minicamp really until mid-June. But starting on Monday, we've got actual football activity now, beyond just lifting weights and beyond just the rookie minicamp. We got actual football stuff coming now, and it starts all next week with OTAs. And we know the Green Bay Packers have a lot of positions across their roster that have a lot of figuring out to do. Now, I put out last week the 53-man roster prediction, and I touched on a couple of those, here's the things that is getting considered. But really, there's 5 positions that I'm very eager to see not only how the Packers, who plays where exactly, but what's the rationale, what are the rotations going to be like, etc., as we continue to work through this offseason program. Then at the end, I got a little something that's just been bothering me, and I got to get off my chest. Before we dive into the topic, though, one quick logistical note. If you're just here for the first time, just popping in, not important to you, I understand. But for those of you who actually check out every video and everything and care about the schedule and when new things come out for Lombardi Time Brews, I wanted to give you a heads up. So today, obviously, episode like normal. On Friday, though, of this week, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be on YouTube. Still going to be hosting an event, but this time it's going to be through the Bleacher Report app. Yes, Bleacher Report has asked me, they reached out, they asked me to come do something for them. So I'm going to be hosting a show for Bleacher Report. If you're at all able to make it, I'd love for you to be there. Still working out a couple of the fine-tuned details. So of course, as I know them all, I'll be posting about all of the details on all the social channels. So make sure you follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram now, or even just right here on YouTube if that's your place. The one place where I don't update with announcements is any of the podcast places. So if you only listen to me, then you might want to get to a place just temporarily where you can at least see some announcements, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. So going to be hosting an episode for Bleacher Report, and there I'm going to be talking about trade ideas for the Green Bay Packers, just kind of having some fun in the offseason. So I'll put out exact details when I know them. And then, of course, next week with the advent of OTAs, everything's going to be just going as regular. So again, Friday, no episode here like Spotify or YouTube. And then next week, back to normal. So let's dive into these 5 positions. And keep in mind, too, this is the positions that I want to see play out the most, but these are the positions that have a lot of questions. And it's not just this dude versus this dude. It might be 4 guys gunning for one spot. And it's not just a matter of who makes the most head-turning plays. It's also not just a matter of, well, this guy has 1 year left in his contract, this guy has 3 years left in his contract, or practice squad availability versus not, or was he a draft choice versus not? All of these things actually go into the decision. And even then, it's not even just as simple as the dude can play wide receiver better than the other one. No. Sometimes there's thoughts beyond that, like special teams, versatility, etc. And speaking of that position, I'm going to go with number 1, wide receiver. Look, I think the top 3 are relatively solidified. You got Watson, you got Dobbs, you got Jaden Reed, and I know the Packers did just work out another veteran receiver. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. As of right now, it's just a workout. But realistically, if they do sign a vet receiver, where exactly are they going to fit in here? Because the one that they worked out barely has played offense for 2 years and looks to be more of a punt returner. So you've got Watson, Dobbs, and Reed. Beyond that, though, your next tier is probably Toure, Melton, Wicks, Grant Dubose. Now, I know some people want to take Samori Toure, make sure that he's in that top level. If you've been following for a while, you know that I'm not necessarily in that camp. I think he can do some nice things, but I don't consider him to be the next coming for the wide receiver position. And Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst have talked extensively in multiple press conferences about how Samori Toure is a player to watch, is a player who's coming along. Very similarly to how they talked about Tyler Davis last year, and we saw how that went as Tyler Davis dropped a bunch of things in preseason, then pretty much only played special teams. So just bear that in mind. And if you're looking at Toure, of course, it's his second year in the system. He's gotten that praise. Let's look also at Bo Melton, a mid-year pickup last year, who it's going to be like year and a half in the system now, with the benefit of a lot more special teams experience, return experience, and he's a totally different type of receiver, with Melton being much more of your gadget type, like a Swerve Irvin used to be, or the role that some people believe that Jaden Reed is going to take on this year. Then you got Wicks, who's a mid-round pick, and Grant DuBose is a seventh-round pick. And so you got a question with any of your draft picks. One, yes, as was acknowledged in the comments last week, Gutekunst almost always keeps all of his draft picks. There's only been like 5 instances in 5 drafts that he's gotten rid of somebody. Well, I think that's just tougher to do this year with 13 draft picks, especially with some that he kind of like doubled up on the position, like wide receiver, choosing Reed, Wicks, and DuBose. So you've got to question, all right, let's see, wide receiver 6. Like Melton, got that special teams experience. I don't know if we're going to be able to sneak him onto the practice squad anymore. Or Wicks. Wicks has had let's say hypothetically, we're into the future. Wicks has had a difficult training camp, and we want to sneak him onto the practice squad. Well, he was a mid-draft pick. I don't know if we're going to be able to. Grant DuBose, 7th-round pick, same thing. These are all part of the questions. And it's not just whether this dude can go out and play wide receiver better than the other one, whether you want it to be or not. Looking at the next position, the next one that I'm excited for, straight up, the offensive line. Matt LaFleur obviously is huge on getting the best 5 out there. And Adam Stenavich, the Packers offensive coordinator, talked yesterday and had some enlightening things about what they may be considering all around Zach Tom. Yes, the second-year offensive lineman. No one's quite sure where he's going to play. Should he play at right tackle? Should he play on the left side of the line? I know some people believe that he only plays well on the left and struggled on the right. But the right, like, what do you do with Yash? Lots and lots of questions, right? And well, Stenavich yesterday in his press conference said that basically left tackle and left guard, done, accounted for. We know that's Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins. However, center through right tackle is open competition. And you would think that it's going to be the incumbents, Josh Myers, right guard John Runyon Jr., and then right tackle be Yash or Zach Tom. But Stenavich kind of blew that up yesterday and said Zach Tom's going to compete everywhere. Center, right guard, right tackle. And how they manage that is going to be fascinating. Is Zach Tom just ably going to continue learning all of the positions? And let's say that Tom comes up above Josh Myers and takes the center job. Well, then where does Josh Myers go? Does he just become your backup center? Or do you have Myers shift over to right guard to be direct competition for John Runyon Jr.? So I'm saying, for every move that the Packers make, there are vast consequences in terms of this roster building. And as a side note, let's take a look at the tackle position. Because we know that they have 3 very young tackles that they are very high on to certain degrees. And that would be Caleb Jones, the mountain of a man, last year's 7th-round pick Rasheed Walker, and last year's mid-season pickup Luke Tenuta. Again, that's 3 players kind of a similar mold. They all more so play tackle. They're all at a similar experience levels. We know the Packers are supposedly high on all of them. And supposedly part of the reason why the Packers didn't choose an offensive lineman at all in this year's draft is because they like all of the developmental depth that they have in the form of Caleb Jones, Luke Tenuta, amongst others, Sean Ryan, all the other young ones that they've got too. So it's this wonderfully interesting domino effect that's going to happen at the offensive line. And the minute you plug in someone, you're shifting, I don't want to say deck chairs on the Titanic because I think their offensive line is going to be good. But you're certainly shifting more pieces, as we know Stenavich, LaFleur, the Packers like to do. And July and August is kind of the time to do it, but maybe we should stop doing it as much as we've been doing in September. Now, next one. Another offensive one. One last offensive one for you. That would be the running back position. Lou Nichols, Patrick Taylor, Tyler Goodson. Similar to the wide receiver conversation, although a much lighter degree. You've got Lou Nichols, who they just invested a draft pick in, who really you need to find out this summer, like, what are that man's defining traits? He takes the yards that are given to him. He had a highly productive 2021 in college, not nearly as productive 2022. Like, what is the thing that made that guy so productive in 2021? Because, frankly, I think it's a little bit of a question. You don't look at him and say, well, that's an absolute speed back. You don't look at him and you say, well, that's an absolute power back. No, you look at him and you go, it's a running back. He gets yards. Okay, how? Now, he was productive enough, certainly, to warrant a late draft pick. And I know I'm being a little facetious. Obviously, he does have positive and negative traits. But the thing for the Green Bay Packers is they need to see which of those traits stand out enough to be a competent NFL running back. Then comp him against Patrick Taylor, who's just downright the veteran at this point, who is steady, does what you ask him to do, even plays on special teams. But at the end of the day, are you going to have Patrick Taylor ever break open a run? Ever? No, more than likely not. He's steady in pass pro, not magnificent. And that's kind of Patrick Taylor's game. And then you got Tyler Goodson, who, think back to last preseason, Tyler Goodson was dashing, diving, cutting through lanes. A very effective and exciting runner. But, man, he's a good receiver. But the man doesn't do pass pro. He struggles in other areas. He's certainly not a power runner. Do you want your number 3 back to be that? So, running backs in the preseason, like wide receivers, is kind of one of the fun things to watch the most, or at training camp, or wherever, right? Wherever we get to see the Packers actually practice and not just hear the murmurs from inside the Don Hutson Center. And running back, along with wide receiver, is one of those most exciting positions because you actually get to see the ball carrier. I remember last year I was pulling hard for Tyler Goodson because of how effective he was running in the preseason. But I understand because he's lacking in other departments that the Packers really need, like special teams or pass pro. Now, when evaluating these people, new nickels, late round draft pick, could you sneak them onto your practice squad? Probably. Every team has a smattering of late round running backs, it seems, so you could probably sneak them on. Patrick Taylor, you got to wonder, is it getting to the point that Patrick Taylor, after 2 years now of constantly practice squad roster, is he going to want to stick around for another year of that, or may he go seek employment elsewhere, or may have more of an opportunity, not behind such esteemed running backs as Jones and Dillon? And then you got Goodson, who you got to wonder, can we get him on the practice squad again, especially if he balls out in the preseason again? Or is some other team going to want to take more of a chance on a slashing, pass-catching back? All of this is going to be part of the conversation. And then, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, only one here nearly as big as the others, and that's the safety position. Yeah, the Packers did release Wiggins, so they're down to only 9 safeties in the competition now. Wiggins, of course, let go as of recent so that they could add punter Dan Whalen. Now 9 safeties going to competing for what you think is 4 to 6 jobs. Maybe 6 feels pushing it, but I think I could very well see it happening. But 9 safeties competing for 4 to 6 jobs, and that's Darnell Savage, Rudy Ford, Jonathan Owens, Tavarius Moore, Dallin Levitt, Anthony Johnson Jr., Tree Carpenter, who has said he's going to play inside linebacker. The Packers official roster still puts him at safety. Ennis Gaines, Benny Sapp. That's a lot of bodies. And, one of the coaches today, because the assistant coaches even talked about how he loves the level of competition at safety. This is from Ryan Downward, the safety coach. He talked about how the cream always rises to the top in these competition situations and how he's very excited by the level of competition. That he thinks that there's going to be ascension from some of these guys. And the biggest thing, frankly, with Darnell Savage is that the man needs to start believing in himself again. That he can play center fielder or in the box. And I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that that's a lot of Darnell Savage's issues. So how they sort that out, again, kind of like offensive line, going to be fascinating. And I'm not offering my take right now on how it's going to go, what they're going to do. I'm just saying it's going to be fun to watch. And then the last one, you've got Anders Carlson at kicker, who they just invested a draft pick in. You got Parker White, who they signed to a futures contract at the end of the season. And I think it's kind of those two competing against not a player on the roster right now, but the lingering ghost of Mason Crosby. Yeah, the Silver Fox himself, still out there, still free agent. And Rich Bisaccia said yesterday in his interview that the Packers have continued conversations with Mason Crosby. So why do I have the feeling that this is, Mason, we know that you want to keep kicking. We understand that you want to be paid like a top-tier kicker. And by all means, look, we've got our draft pick now who we believe we can work with. But by all means, Mason, go see if you can get that money. Go see if you can get the starting job in Dallas or wherever else since Dallas is looking for a kicker. And go chase it. Go get paid your $4 or $5 million. Be an elite level kicker, maybe even $3 million. But at the end of the day, for us, the Packers, if Anders Carlson doesn't work out, if we can't get past his injury issues, if Bisaccia can't do the work with him that he thinks he can, and again, I'll say it again, if you're looking for a reason why the Packers chose Carlson, go back and look at 2020. Not 2021, not 2022 when he was battling injuries, go back to 2020. And you're going to see the kicker that the Packers believe they're getting now. Maybe Parker White doesn't work out. Either way, this air of like conversations just leads me to believe, hey, these two youngins don't work out, and you don't go get that $4 million contract guaranteed starting job, we'll be in touch. And I think that's going to be a fascinating competition to watch without Mason even being there. Here's the last thing. Last thing for today. When it first happened, I said, I'm not going to talk about this at all. Like it's petty, it's personal, it's got nothing to do with what happens on the field, but like I talk about stuff that's off the field all the time. I'm never going to get into a player's like politics, family, whatever. But here's the thing. And again, this is not politics, this isn't family. This is just how you do business. Yesterday, a large question was put out on Twitter. From other accounts, other podcasters, other fans, lots of people waiting in and said, wait, we want David Bakhtiari gone now. Why? And I responded with, I don't want David Bakhtiari gone. Because I don't. Like, just keep in mind, like 3 weeks ago, I was standing here, like, pounding the table saying, get over it. Yes, he said they, in this stupid bussin' conversation. But, like, yeah, he was talking about the front office, not the team himself. If he was talking about the team himself, he would say, if you were around for that time, you knew that I ardently defended David Bakhtiari, and hard. But here is what I can't defend. I just can't. And so when I responded to that question, I said, I don't want him gone. But for a player to insult and call out the franchise's own VP of communications and social media team rubs me the wrong way. And I immediately had a couple people respond with, that's not what he meant. You have no idea what you're talking about. David Bakhtiari was kidding. And if you miss this all and you're on Twitter, I encourage you to go take a look, see exactly what I'm talking about. And this is all from the schedule release video last week. Yes, as has become the norm, every team in the NFL now creates a schedule release video. You know, because it's the NFL, so we got to like make everything huge. And so every team comes up with some kitschy little way to announce their schedule. And the Green Bay Packers did, admittedly, not exactly the greatest video. They did a take on 80s, 90s infomercials that you'd see at 2 a.m. and then scare the bejesus out of you when you fall asleep and leave the TV on. And it was totally over the top. It was very dramaticized, etc. You know, and then you had teams like the Titans roaming the streets and asking their people to name logos. It was very funny. You had the Chargers doing this full-on, basically, anime movie that took shots at every team on their schedule. And you had the Packers doing something incredibly tame. And I have belief and reasons as to why the Packers operate the way that they do on social media. But David Bakhtiari saw that video and tweeted at the Packers vice president of communications. Yeah, one of the tippy top of the executives, right? Tweeted at him and said, yo, JT Wallers, you sign off on this. And JT essentially responded with, depends on how you feel it is. And Bakhtiari went, well, I think that's fairly obvious. Wallers went, What was it? And Bakhtiari then went on to say that it was booty cheeks, that a high school TikToker could have done better. And then in further conversations, Bakhtiari continued to double down. And that right there is where Waller's dipped. He didn't take part in any more conversation after that. Then you had David Bakhtiari go and talk with Tyler Herrick, who runs Cheesehead TV. Cheesehead TV, and of course, if you don't know Cheesehead TV, I'm sure you do. Very large fan community. Said that Tyler Herrick at Cheesehead TV should be running the Packers' socials. They do a better job. And Bakhtiari continued to double down, even on further fan interactions. And when I responded with, that rubbed me the wrong way, I got told, nah, you don't understand Dave. It was a joke. It's what he does. Okay. Here's a couple things. Let's say it was a joke. Hardy har har. It was all just for laughs, right? Why do I get the feeling that JT Wallers wasn't in on the joke? Or, you know, the social media team that is employed by the Packers, didn't see any of them interacting either. Or even Russ Hockowitz does a fantastic job as the Packers digital reporter, who you know is involved in a lot of these marketing type things. Didn't see him involved in and I wonder why that would be if this was all just one big joke. Okay, so then let's say it's not a joke. That's not okay. Look, we all have worked jobs, right? Like, we've all worked jobs that we don't agree with the decision making or ad campaigns or like whatever of people higher than us on the totem pole. And you know what we don't do or what we aren't allowed to do or anything like that? Go on to Twitter and post about it to 1 million freaking people. Why? Because whether you're kidding, whether you're not kidding, it sends a terrible, terrible message to your clients, to your fans, right? I mean, go, if you're on Twitter and you haven't seen this yet, go look. Look at how many people tell David Bakhtiari, bro, if you're unhappy, just ask to be traded already. Because even if you're kidding, that's the message it sends. Or you've got a litany of comments going, dude, that's disrespectful as hell. Like, these are people who work hard. Or, you know, like it's the board of directors in Green Bay that direct the social media team to be old school. And I've got a lot of reasons as to why. One, have you noticed that the Green Bay Packers don't have to do marketing like the Chargers? Like, the Chargers have difficulty filling their stadium, don't they? Something you don't say about the Green Bay Packers. Now, I know, probably not being as articulate as I should be. But at the end of the day, I've worked in very public jobs. And yes, I've been involved in local politics quite heavily for different situations. You want to know what you don't do? If you want there to be positive vibes around the organization that you are associated with, you don't trash a portion of it publicly. You just don't. Even if you are kidding. Because if people don't think you're kidding, they're going to take it one of two ways, like I've already explained. Or if people do think you're kidding, you better make damn sure that everyone's in on the joke. I don't think the Packers were. And that rubs me the wrong way. As I have said on this channel several times before, if I can rationalize it, if I can see your reasoning and your intention is good, I can defend it. Brian Gutekunst, David Bakhtiari, Aaron Rodgers at the time, whatever the case may be. But when you veer into territory that I cannot clearly see your intentions, and I'd be happy to be enlightened in a different way, it rubs me the wrong way. And I'd love to be told, factually that I should feel differently, but not seeing it in this case. So, I encourage you, if you haven't seen it yet, go look it up on Twitter, dive into the drama, go see. If you're not on Twitter, bless your soul, you're living a better life. But go decide for yourself. Thanks for joining me on Lombardi Time Brews. I will be back, not Friday. Remember, Friday I'm doing Bleacher Report. I'll put out all the info as I can. And then Monday, I'll be back talking storylines, talking competition, strengths of the team, trade tiers, etc. Whole bunch of different ideas coming up soon. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. I'll see you soon. And as always, go Pack Go.